Every morning, at exactly 8 a.m., the small street cafe opened its doors. And every morning, almost like a rule, Armand saw the same girl walk in. She never came late, not even by a minute. Her steps were slow, quiet, and careful, as if she did not want anyone to notice her. But Armand noticed her every single day. Her name was not known to him yet. He only knew her because of a few small things. She always wore the same light blue scarf. She always ordered the same drink, a simple black coffee. And she always sat in the same corner seat, the one near the window where the morning sunlight touched the wooden table. Armand was the owner of the cafe, and he had seen thousands of customers over the years. Loud people, busy people, friendly people, rude people, he had seen them all. But this girl was different. She was too quiet, too alone, too distant. It felt as if she carried a heavy story inside her, a story she never wanted to tell. Every morning, when she sat down, she kept her head slightly down. Her eyes moved slowly around the cafe, but she never looked directly at anyone. She would hold her cup with both hands, like she wanted warmth more than the drink. And then, after exactly 27 minutes, she stood up and left. 27 minutes. Always the same. It was strange. It was almost as if she was following a hidden routine. Armand found himself watching her more than he expected. He told himself it was nothing, just normal curiosity. But inside, he knew it was more than that. There was something about her that pulled him in. Something he couldn't explain. Sometimes, he noticed her eyes looked a little red, as if she had cried earlier. Sometimes she stared outside the window for too long, not even blinking. Sometimes her fingers shook when she lifted the cup. And once, just once, he saw a small tear fall down her cheek before she quickly wiped it away. That moment stayed with him. He wondered who she was. Why she came alone every day. What she was waiting for. Or what she was running from. One morning, the cafe was almost empty when she arrived. The weather was cold, and a light fog covered the street. When she entered, she looked more tired than usual. She walked slowly, holding her bag tightly. Armand felt a strange worry grow inside him, but he didn't know why. He served her coffee like always and placed it gently on her table. She did not smile, but her eyes softened for a second, maybe a quiet thank you. Armand wanted to talk to her. He wanted to ask if she was okay. But he stopped himself. She looked like someone who was afraid to speak. Someone who did not want to be noticed. Someone who preferred silence. But that silence was heavy. Too heavy. As she sat there, a sudden gust of wind blew outside, making the cafe door shake. She looked up for a moment, almost startled. And in that moment, Armand saw it clearly, loneliness. Not normal loneliness, but the deep kind. The kind that stays even when you are surrounded by people. The kind that hides behind quiet eyes. She stayed her usual 27 minutes and left. Armand watched her as she walked away, disappearing into the foggy street. Something inside him whispered. She is not just a customer. There is something she needs. Something she is trying to find. That night, Armand could not stop thinking about her. He remembered her shaking hands, her tired eyes, the way she held her scarf close to her face. Everything about her looked like a silent message. A message he could not understand yet. But he wanted to. And so, he made a small decision that would change everything later. Tomorrow, he told himself quietly. Tomorrow, I will try to talk to her. It was the first step. The first step into a story neither of them expected. The next morning arrived faster than Armand expected. He had barely slept, thinking about the quiet girl who came every day. He kept wondering why she looked so lonely, why she never smiled, and why she always left after 27 minutes. But today, he had made a decision. He would try to talk to her, just a simple conversation, nothing more. Before opening the cafe, Armand prepared her usual table. He cleaned the window corner carefully, placed a fresh napkin, and even adjusted the chair so it faced the sunlight perfectly. He didn't know why he was paying so much attention to these small details, but something inside him wanted her to feel comfortable. At 7:59 a.m., he stood behind the counter, pretending to organize cups. But his eyes stayed on the door. And exactly at 8 a.m., she walked in, calm, quiet, and wrapped in her light blue scarf. But today, she looked a little different. Her shoulders seemed heavier, as if she carried an invisible weight. Armand quickly prepared her black coffee. This time, even before she placed her order, he placed the cup on her table. She stopped for a second, surprised. Her eyes moved from the cup to Armand, who was still standing nearby with a gentle smile. How did you know?" she asked softly. Arman tried not to sound awkward. "You come every day," he said. "It's easy to remember someone like you." She didn't answer, but her eyes softened in a way he had never seen before. She sat down slowly, holding the warm cup between her hands. Arman walked back to the counter, but his heart beat faster than usual. He wondered if he had made her uncomfortable or if she actually appreciated the gesture. As he wiped the counter, he looked up and noticed something unusual. She wasn't staring at the window like she always did. Today, she was looking around the cafe, slowly, carefully, like she was studying the space for the first time. Then she looked at Arman again. Not long, just a small glance. But it was enough to feel different. Maybe the wall she always kept around herself had a small crack now. After a few minutes, Arman saw her hands shake again as she lifted the cup. He noticed it before, but this time he couldn't ignore it. He walked over with a gentle voice. "Are you okay? Do you want water?" She paused, then nodded slightly. He brought a glass of water and placed it on the table. For a moment, she kept looking at the water instead of drinking it, almost as if she was deciding whether to accept this kindness or reject it. Finally, she whispered, "Thank you." It was the first time she said those words to him. Arman smiled softly. "If you need anything, I am here." She didn't respond but took a small sip of water. Something about her looked fragile, like she wanted to speak but didn't know how to begin. Arman stayed close, not too near, just enough to show he was open to conversation. After a long silence, she finally spoke. I'm sorry if I trouble you. I just prefer quiet places." "You're not troubling me," Arman said quickly. "This cafe is quiet most mornings. And you're always welcome here." She lowered her gaze again, and her fingers touched the edge of her scarf. For the first time, Arman noticed the scarf wasn't just light blue, it had tiny white patterns, like fading snowflakes. Perhaps it had meaning for her. "What's your name?" he asked gently. She hesitated, then answered in a soft voice, "Sarah." Sarah. The name suited her, simple, gentle, and quiet. Arman nodded. "It's nice to know your name." She gave a tiny nod back. Not a smile, but something close to it. A start. The minutes passed quietly. But today, she didn't keep checking her phone. She didn't shake as much. She didn't look lost. Instead, she kept looking at Arman secretly, as if trying to understand why he cared. When her 27 minutes were almost over, she stood up. But before leaving, she turned slightly toward him. "Thank you for the coffee," she said softly. Arman watched her leave, but today he didn't feel helpless. Today, he had taken the first step. And he felt something new. The next few days passed quietly, but something had changed between Arman and Sarah. She still came every morning at 8 a.m., still sat in the same corner, and still ordered her black coffee. But now there was a small connection, a soft thread, that had started to pull them closer. On the fourth morning after they exchanged names, the sky turned dark. Heavy clouds covered the sun, and cold wind ran through the streets. Arman watched the raindrops fall against the cafe windows. It was one of those mornings that felt too silent. He wondered if Sarah would come. At exactly 8 a.m., the cafe door opened, but this time her entrance was different. Sarah stepped inside, completely soaked from the rain. Her scarf dripped water, and her hair pressed against her face. She looked tired, and hurt in a way Arman had never seen before. Without thinking twice, he rushed toward her. "You're soaked. Wait, I'll get a towel." She nodded slightly, unable to speak. Arman brought a soft towel and handed it to her. Her hands trembled as she took it. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice weaker than usual. She sat in her corner seat, and Arman placed a warm cup of coffee in front of her. The steam rose between them, giving the moment a quiet comfort. For a few minutes, she stayed silent. She rubbed her cold hands together and pulled her scarf closer. Arman stood nearby, unsure if he should speak or let her rest. Finally, she lifted her eyes. Do you ever feel like the whole world is moving without you?" she asked suddenly. Arman didn't expect the question. "Sometimes," he answered honestly. "Why?" Sarah looked down. "Because that's how I feel every day." Arman sat at the empty table next to her, close enough to listen but far enough to give space. He didn't want to push her. He only wanted her to know she wasn't alone. "You don't have to tell me anything," he said gently. "But if you want to talk, I'm here." Sarah pressed her lips together as if holding back words. Minutes passed, and the rain kept hitting the windows harder. The cafe remained empty, just the two of them, listening to the storm outside. Then, slowly, she started speaking. "I'm not from this city," she said softly. "I moved here a few months ago. I didn't know anyone, and I didn't want to know anyone." Armin listened quietly. "I thought a new place would fix everything," she continued. "I thought if I ran far enough, the memories wouldn't follow." She paused. Her fingers tightened around the coffee cup. "But memories always follow," she whispered. Armin wanted to ask more, but he held himself back. She wasn't ready to give the whole truth yet. She was only giving small pieces of her broken story. "When I found this cafe," she said, "it felt peaceful, safe, like a place where no one would expect anything from me." "And that's why you come every morning?" Armin asked gently. She nodded. "It's the only place where I can breathe. The only place where I don't feel invisible." Those words stayed inside Armin like a heavy stone. He had seen thousands of customers, but none had spoken like this. None had held so much quiet pain. He wanted to comfort her. But he also knew comfort must come slowly, like sunlight touching a frozen surface. "Thank you for trusting me," he said softly. "I don't trust people easily," she replied. "But you're different." Her voice cracked at the end, and Armin noticed tears forming in her eyes. She quickly wiped them, pretending nothing happened. He pretended too, not because he didn't care, but because he didn't want to make her feel weak. After a long silence, she stood up. "I should go," she said. "You can stay longer if you want," Armin offered. She shook her head. "Maybe, another day." As she walked toward the door, she turned back and looked at him, really looked, for the first time. "Thank you, for today," she said. Armin watched her step into the rain again, holding her scarf tightly around her shoulders. She walked away slowly, disappearing into the grey morning. But something was different now. She wasn't just the girl who came every morning. She was Sarah, a lonely heart searching for a place to heal. The rain from the previous day had stopped, but the sky still looked heavy and grey. Armin opened the cafe early, even before sunrise. He didn't know why, but something inside him felt restless. He kept thinking about Sarah, the way she entered soaked in rain, the way her voice cracked when she talked about memories that followed her everywhere. He wondered if she would come today. He hoped she would. When the clock hit 8 a.m., the cafe door stayed closed. Armin's heart sank a little. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. Then 15. She never came late. Not even once. He tried to focus on work, but his eyes kept moving to the door. Every time the bell above the entrance made a small sound, he turned quickly, but it was always someone else. Finally, at 8:33 a.m., the door opened quietly. Sarah walked in. She wasn't soaked this time, but she looked different, tired, distracted, almost scared. Her scarf was wrapped loosely around her neck, and her eyes carried a deep sadness that made Armin forget everything else in the room. "You're late today," Armin said, his voice soft, not wanting to sound worried. She paused, then forced a small smile. "I know. I had trouble getting out of bed." She sat in her usual corner seat, but this time she didn't look outside the window. She kept her hands on the table, slightly shaking. Armin placed her coffee in front of her and sat at the empty table near hers. He didn't want to disturb her, but he didn't want to leave her alone either. For a while, she stared at the coffee cup without taking a single sip. "Armin," she said slowly, "can I ask you something?" "Of course," he said gently. "Do you ever feel scared of your own past?" Armin leaned forward slightly. "Sometimes. But I believe past stories can be carried. They don't have to control us." Sarah took a deep breath. "I wish that was true for me." The cafe around them was quiet. Only the soft sound of the coffee machine filled the air. Armin waited patiently. He felt she was building courage to say something important, something heavy. Finally, she spoke. "I was supposed to get married," she said, her voice trembling. "Everything was planned. The dress, the home, the life, everything." Armin's heart tightened. He didn't expect this. "But 1 month before the wedding," she continued, "he left me. No warning. No reason. He just walked away." Armin felt a cold shock move through him. Sarah held her scarf tightly, as if she needed something to hold her together. "I tried to act strong," she said. "I told everyone I was fine. I lied. I lied to them, and I lied to myself. I kept thinking, maybe he will come back. Maybe he will explain. Her lips trembled. But he never did. She took a shaky breath, and a tear fell onto her hand. She wiped it quickly, but Armand saw it. He felt his chest grow heavy with empathy. I couldn't stay in my hometown, she said. Every street reminded me of him. Every face reminded me of the life I almost had. So I packed everything and moved here, hoping the pain would stay behind. She looked up, meeting Armand's eyes for the first time with honesty instead of fear. But pain follows you. It doesn't care about cities.
Armand wanted to say something comforting, but no words felt strong enough. Instead, he reached out and placed a napkin on the table near her hand. You didn't deserve that, he said quietly. What he did to you, it wasn't your fault. Sarah closed her eyes for a moment, letting those words sink in. When she opened them, there was a softness in her gaze, a softness that came from finally being heard. You know why I come here every morning? She asked. Why? Armand whispered. Because this cafe, she said slowly, is the only place where I don't feel like a failure. Armand's chest tightened again. You're not a failure, Sarah, he said firmly. You're someone who survived pain. That makes you strong. She stared at him with watery eyes. No words. Just a quiet understanding. For the first time since she started coming to the cafe, she took a deep breath that didn't look forced. And for the first time, Armand felt he knew her, really knew her. But he also sensed something more. Her story wasn't over. There was still a part she was hiding. The next morning felt different from all the others. The cafe smelled the same, fresh coffee and warm bread, but something felt missing. Something quiet. Something important. Armand opened the cafe earlier than usual. After hearing Sarah's story the previous day, he couldn't sleep well. Her words kept echoing in his mind. This cafe is the only place where I don't feel like a failure. He kept replaying the moment she said it. The pain behind her voice. The fear behind her smile. And the strange trust she had placed in him. Now, he waited for her to walk through the door. 8 a.m. came. But she didn't. 8:10 a.m. Still nothing. 8:27 a.m., the exact time she usually stood up to leave, passed quietly. Armand tried to keep calm. Maybe she was late again. Maybe she needed rest. Maybe she wanted a day alone. He served other customers, but his eyes kept going back to the door. Every time the small bell above the entrance made a sound, his heart jumped only to fall again when it wasn't her. By 9 a.m., he accepted something was wrong. Sarah never missed a morning. Not one. He tried to tell himself not to overthink, but worry settled inside him like a heavy weight. The second day. The next day, Armand cleaned her corner table 3 times, even though it was spotless. He placed her usual napkin and prepared her coffee cup in advance, just in case. 8 a.m. The door didn't open. By 8:15, a strange fear started rising in him. Maybe she's okay, he whispered to himself. Maybe she's just taking time. But the cafe felt colder, emptier, like something important had been taken away. He checked the clock again and again. The morning sunlight hit her empty seat, making it look even lonelier than the girl who usually sat there. She said she wasn't from this city, Armand thought. What if she went back? What if she left again, without telling anyone? The thought hit him harder than he expected. He didn't realize until now how much her presence meant. Her silence. Her gentle voice. Her trembling hands around the coffee cup. Everything about her had become part of the cafe, part of his mornings. Without her, something felt broken. The third day. Armand entered the cafe with a heavy heart. The morning fog outside matched his mood perfectly. Grey. Quiet. Emotionless. When he opened the door, he looked immediately at her corner. Empty again. He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated with himself. Why am I worried like this? She's just a customer. But his heart didn't believe that. Not anymore. He cleaned a few tables, rearranged some chairs, and tried to focus on work, but his mind kept returning to the same question. Where is she? He remembered the fear in her eyes when she told him her past. He remembered how fragile she looked when she walked into the cafe soaked in rain. He remembered her saying, "The cafe is the only place I can breathe." What if she was hurting again? What if something happened to her? By afternoon, Armin couldn't take it anymore. He stepped outside, hoping to see her on the street, walking slowly with her light blue scarf. But she wasn't there. It felt like looking for a missing piece of himself. The fourth day. On the fourth morning, Armin didn't prepare her coffee. He couldn't. It hurt too much. He stood behind the counter, hands resting on the wooden surface, staring at the door without any hope left. He tried to convince himself to move on, to accept that maybe she had left the city, maybe she had returned to her old life, or maybe she didn't want to come back. But every thought felt wrong. She didn't seem like someone who would leave without a reason. At 8:45 a.m., when Armin finally turned away from the door, the bell above the entrance rang. His heart froze. He turned slowly, afraid it was just another customer, but when he saw the familiar light blue scarf, his breath caught. Sarah stood there. But she didn't look like the Sarah he knew. Her eyes were tired. Her expression was nervous. And she looked guilty. I'm sorry, she said softly. I should have told you. I didn't mean to disappear. Armin stepped closer. Sarah, where were you? She held the strap of her bag tightly. I had to go somewhere. Something important. Something I was scared to face. She paused, her voice trembling. And it might change everything. Armin felt his heart sink. Sarah stood at the cafe entrance, her light blue scarf hanging loosely from her shoulders. For a moment, she didn't move. She just stared at Armin, as if she was afraid he might not want to hear what she had to say. Armin took a slow step toward her. You're back, he said quietly. Sarah lowered her eyes. I didn't want to disappear. But I didn't know what else to do. Her voice was soft, almost breaking. Armin could see she was holding something heavy inside her. Something important. Come sit, he said gently. They walked to her usual corner, the corner that had become her silent home. She sat down slowly, her fingers twisting the edge of her scarf. Armin placed a fresh cup of black coffee in front of her, but she didn't touch it. She took a deep breath. I went to meet him. Armin froze. Her ex-fiancé. The man who left her. Why? He asked carefully. Because I needed answers, she whispered. I needed to know why he left me like that. Why he broke everything without saying a single word. She wiped a tear before it fell. I thought hearing the truth would help me move on. But what? Armin asked softly. Sarah looked up at him, tired, emotional, defeated. He didn't even remember the date of our wedding, Armin. He didn't remember the day he walked away. He just said he wasn't ready and moved on with his life. Her voice cracked completely. It felt like I was the only one who suffered. Like all those months of crying meant nothing. Armin's chest tightened painfully. Sarah continued, her hands trembling visibly now. I didn't come here for 4 days because I needed to know if I was strong enough to face him. And when I did, I felt empty. I felt stupid, like maybe I was still holding on to something that never existed. Armin listened closely, every word hitting him deeper than he expected. I came back today, she whispered, because I realized something important. He leaned slightly closer. What did you realize? Sarah swallowed hard. That this cafe is the only place where I feel human. And you are the only person who listens to me without judgment. Armin didn't speak. He waited. She continued, her voice trembling but honest.